The Whispering Pines. The cabin in the Pines was supposed to be a quiet weekend getaway. Ethan, a 32-year-old paramedic from Portland, drove north into the thick forests of Maine, chasing silence after months of trauma calls. The old hunting cabin he rented sat deep between towering pines that whispered against each other when the wind blew. It was mid-October. Fog clung to the ground and the smell of wet leaves filled the air. As he unpacked, he noticed deep claw marks on the porch railing, old but deliberate. The owner had said the scratches came from a bear years ago. Ethan believed him, until he saw that the claw marks stopped halfway, as if the creature that made them stood upright. That night the woods were quiet. Too quiet. Then came the soft creak of a floorboard inside the cabin, coming from the kitchen. Something in the woods. Ethan grabbed his flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the darkness. "Hello?" he called out, but the cabin swallowed his voice. The kitchen door was slightly open, the night air cold and still. He stepped outside and the forest greeted him with silence. No insects, no wind, no sound. Then he saw it, a figure standing among the trees, tall and thin, almost blending with the pines. It didn't move. He blinked and it was gone. Heart pounding, he slammed the door shut, locking every bolt. He told himself it was just his imagination, a shadow. But when he returned to his room, he found pine needles scattered across the floor, leading directly to his bed. The window was open. He swore he'd closed it. The whispers begin. The next day, Ethan tried to shake off the unease. He went hiking, hoping daylight would clear his head. Yet even beneath the sun, the woods felt wrong. The wind carried faint whispers, like voices calling his name from every direction. He froze, listening. "Ethan." The voice was faint, distant, but it carried a human tone. He ran back toward the cabin, branches clawing at his arms. When he finally made it inside, he noticed something new, muddy footprints, bare, long-toed, almost human, leading from the door to the living room. They stopped right at the fireplace where ash had been disturbed. He backed away slowly, clutching his phone to call for help. But the moment he pressed the power button, the screen went black. Battery drained, though it was fully charged that morning. Then came a whisper, this time right behind him. "Why'd you come back?" Isolation and doubt. Ethan locked himself inside the bedroom, barricading the door with a chair. He told himself he was hallucinating, lack of sleep, stress from work. But every time he closed his eyes, he heard movement outside, slow footsteps circling the cabin, dragging sounds along the walls as though fingers brushed the wood. Hours passed. His flashlight died, plunging the room into darkness. Then came the sound of breathing inside the room. He aimed his phone's dim glow toward the corner and saw something, an outline crouched beside the dresser. His heart stopped. He blinked, and it was gone. In the silence that followed, he heard a faint knock on the wall. 3 times, deliberate, slow, and from outside a whisper echoed through the glass. "We remember you." Ethan had never been here before. Had he? The pines come alive, desperate. Ethan bolted from the cabin into the woods, the freezing air biting his skin. The whispers grew louder now, overlapping, urgent. The forest moved unnaturally. The trees seemed to bend toward him. Branches reached like fingers, brushing his jacket as he ran. He stumbled upon an old wooden sign half buried in moss. Whispering Pines Children's Camp, closed 1991. His mind flashed. He had been here. He was 8 years old, part of a missing persons search after a fire killed several kids, but he'd forgotten everything since. His pulse thundered as he heard laughter, childlike, echoing from between the trees. Tiny figures moved in the fog, their faces glowing pale white. "You left us," one said. Ethan fell backward, realizing the trees weren't trees at all. They were the charred remains of the camp cabins, blackened trunks shaped like bodies. The final whisper by dawn, rescuers found the cabin door wide open. Ethan's truck was still parked outside, keys in the ignition, but he was gone. Only the faint trail of footprints led toward the old camp ruins, disappearing at the tree line. Locals who searched said the air there felt wrong, like it hummed. A month later, hikers reported hearing someone calling for help deep in the forest. The same name repeated over and over. Ethan. They said the voice came from everywhere. The wind, the trees, the ground. Park rangers sealed off the area after finding something carved into a pine trunk. He came back. Now he stays. To this day, on cold October nights, locals swear they hear whispering from those woods. If you listen close enough, you'll hear a single breath behind you asking, "Why'd you come back?" The Thing by Miller's Creek. The road to nowhere. Jason and his younger sister Mia were driving through Shasta Trinity National Forest after dark, heading toward their uncle's remote cabin near Miller's Creek. The road was narrow and swallowed by fog, lined with redwoods so tall they blocked the stars. Their GPS had lost signal hours ago. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the faint static from the radio. Then, out of nowhere, a shape darted across the road, pale, human-sized, crawling on all fours. Jason slammed the brakes, tires screeching. They stopped just in time, but when he got out to look, there was nothing there. No footprints, no animal tracks, just the faint smell of rot drifting from the woods. When he climbed back into the truck, Mia's face was pale. "Jason," she whispered, "there's something standing behind the trees." The creek cabin. They finally reached their uncle's old cabin by the creek, a sagging structure swallowed by vines and moss. The place hadn't been used in years. Jason forced the swollen door open, the hinges crying out. The air inside was cold, heavy with mildew and something else, metallic like blood. They lit a lantern. That's when Mia noticed claw marks, deep gouges along the floorboards leading straight to the back door. Jason brushed it off as bear damage, but then the back door creaked open on its own, revealing the dark forest beyond. They shut it tight, shoved a table against it. As they settled in, Jason checked the old family photo hanging on the wall. His blood ran cold. The picture showed their uncle smiling in front of the cabin, but behind him, half hidden in the trees, stood a pale figure with black eyes. The creek whispers. The next morning the woods felt alive. The sound of running water from Miller's Creek seemed louder, echoing strange tones, like whispering voices woven into the flow. Jason went to fetch water while Mia stayed inside. Kneeling at the creek, he noticed the surface wasn't reflecting his face, it showed someone else's, a man with hollow eyes staring straight at him. He stumbled back, dropping the bucket, and when he looked again, the image was gone. Back at the cabin, he found Mia pale and trembling. "It came to the window," she said. "It looks like you." Jason didn't believe her, until he saw his own muddy footprints leading from the woods to the front door, though he'd just come back from the opposite direction. From deep in the trees, something called out in his voice. "Mia, open the door." The forest shift's night fell fast. The fog rolled in, thick as smoke. Jason and Mia sat by the dying fire, listening to the faint creaking outside, footsteps pacing around the cabin, slow and deliberate. Jason peeked through a crack in the boarded window. He saw something moving among the trees, its limbs too long, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. Then it stopped and raised its hand, holding something shiny. A reflection flickered. Jason realized it was his own flashlight, but his flashlight was inside, on the table beside him. He turned to grab it, and it was gone. Panic surged through him. Mia whispered, "It's copying you." They heard the front steps groan, then a low knock followed by Jason's own voice again, calm, coaxing, too familiar. "It's okay, Mia, you can open up now." The imitation Jason armed himself with a hatchet and motioned for Mia to stay silent. The knocking stopped. For a few minutes there was only silence, broken by the soft sound of dripping water inside the cabin. They turned toward the sound and froze. Water was pooling under the doorway, dark and thick. Something was inside. A wet, gurgling breath filled the room. From the shadows by the fireplace, a shape crawled out. White skin stretched thin over bone, black sockets where eyes should have been. It tilted its head like a curious child. Then, in Jason's exact voice, it whispered, "I told you not to come back." He swung the hatchet, but it vanished into the dark, the sound of running water rising to a deafening roar as the entire cabin began to shake. The drowned echo days later. Rangers found the cabin half flooded, as if the creek had swallowed it overnight. Jason and Mia were never found. Only their truck remained, engine running, headlights aimed toward the woods. Locals say that when fog drapes over Miller's Creek, the water ripples even when there's no wind. Campers have reported hearing voices from the water, sometimes their own voices calling them closer. One ranger swears he saw a reflection waving back at him from beneath the surface, smiling. A month after the siblings vanished, a message appeared carved into a tree trunk by the creek. It's not the water that remembers you. It's what lives beneath it. Now, when the fog rolls in thick and white, people say two figures can be seen walking by the water, calling each other's names in the dark. The last hike at Black Hollow Trail, the trail that doesn't exist, in the mountains of West Virginia, nestled between forgotten mining towns, lies a trail most locals refuse to speak about, Black Hollow Trail. Olivia and her boyfriend, Ryan, were adventure vloggers from Pittsburgh who specialized in hidden hikes. They'd heard rumors about a forgotten path that didn't appear on any official map but promised views no one had ever filmed. The locals at the diner warned them not to go past mile marker 12. That trail changes, one old man muttered. But curiosity won. They set out that afternoon, the woods damp and heavy after rainfall. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. No birds, no wind, just the sound of their boots in the mud. When Olivia checked her GPS, the trail line had disappeared. The app now read, "You are off the map." And when they turned around, the path behind them was gone. The disappearing sound at first, Ryan laughed it off, calling it a glitch. But as the sun began to dip, a strange hum started to rise from the trees. It wasn't mechanical, more like dozens of voices humming in unison, too low to understand. Olivia pulled out her camera to record it, but the device glitched, freezing on a single distorted frame of the forest. When she rewound, she noticed a figure standing behind Ryan, a shape with long, branching limbs like antlers sprouting from its head. But when she looked up, nothing was there. The humming grew louder, pressing against their ears until Ryan shouted into the woods, "Who's there?" Silence, then a voice mimicked him perfectly from the dark. "Who's there?" Same tone, same inflection. Ryan turned pale. "Liv," he whispered. That wasn't an echo. The woods rearranged, they decided to head back toward where they came, but every turn led them deeper. The trees seemed closer together now, angled inward like ribs. Their flashlight beams cut through thick mist, revealing carvings on tree trunks, circles with slashes through them, all freshly marked. The ground squelched beneath their boots, mud streaked with something red. "Ryan," Olivia said, "look." A GoPro camera hung from a branch by its strap, cracked and smeared with dirt. When she pressed play, the footage showed another couple, lost, terrified, running through these same woods years ago. It ended abruptly as something dragged the camera down. The same hum began again, low and rhythmic, almost like breathing. Then came the faint crunch of footsteps behind them, slow, steady, human. Ryan raised his flashlight, but the beam hit nothing. Only fog. Then Olivia realized the footsteps were matching hers. The vanishing companion they ran. Branches tore at their clothes as the humming turned to whispers, hundreds of overlapping voices speaking in fragments. "Stay with us." Ryan's hand slipped from hers, and when she turned, he was gone. His flashlight lay on the ground, still on, illuminating boot prints that stopped mid-stride. "Ryan!" she screamed, her voice echoing. Then she heard it again, his voice calling back, "Olivia, this way." She followed the sound through the fog until she saw him ahead, standing perfectly still, back turned. "Ryan," she whispered. He didn't move. When she got closer, she saw his clothes were soaked, mud and something darker dripping from his sleeves. Slowly, his head twisted around too far, too smoothly. His eyes were black, mouth wide open, whispering her name. Olivia stumbled back. The voice came again, but from behind her this time. "Olivia may come back." The hollow wakes panic took over. Olivia ran through the twisting forest, desperate to find an exit. The ground sloped downward, leading her to a hollow filled with fog. She could hear rushing water somewhere below. As she approached, she realized the fog wasn't fog. It was breath rising from cracks in the ground. From within the hollow, shapes began to move, figures crawling, their limbs too long, faces smooth and pale like bark. They whispered in overlapping tones, "Stay with us." She tripped, falling onto something solid beneath the dirt. Her trembling hands brushed away soil to reveal a face, Ryan's real face, cold and still, half buried. She screamed as the imposter version of him stepped into the hollow. eyes glowing faintly white. "Now you remember," it said. "This is where you end." The footage found. 3 months later, a ranger discovered Olivia's camera wedged in a hollow log near the trailhead, its lens cracked, but still recording. The footage showed fragments, the humming, the carvings, the fog, and a brief shot of Olivia running before the camera hit the ground. Then a hand, long, bony and grey, picked it up. The screen flickered, showing the forest empty again. Locals say Black Hollow Trail doesn't exist on any map because the forest itself moves. Those who try to film it never return. Some nights, hikers near the area hear soft humming drifting from the trees. If you listen closely, you can make out words beneath the tone, faint, desperate, and human. "Help me, please." Then silence. Only one new carving appeared that year near the old trail sign. The forest remembers who enters it. The logging camp return after 20 years away. Caleb Turner, a retired logger, returned to the abandoned timberline logging site deep in the Oregon Cascades. He wanted closure. His father had vanished there in 1999 during a freak snowstorm. The road to the camp was overgrown and silent, the forest pressing close like it wanted to swallow his truck whole. He parked by the crumbling mess hole, grabbed his lantern, and stepped out into the biting cold. The scent of pine resin hung heavy in the air. The cabins were still standing, though barely. In the distance, the old water tower creaked, its metal groaning. Caleb noticed something carved into a nearby tree, a single staring eye. When he turned back toward the truck, he froze. Someone had drawn the same eye symbol across the windshield, in the thin layer of dust. The night whistle Caleb lit a fire in the old foreman's cabin that night, the flames casting long, twitching shadows against the walls. He poured himself coffee and stared at his father's old journal, left behind all those years ago. The final entry read, "The watcher doesn't like noise." Before he could ponder it, a sound broke through the wind, a long, shrill whistle echoing from the tree line. Caleb stepped outside, his lantern swinging. The sound stopped instantly. Then, from deep within the woods, the whistle repeated, but this time it mimicked the exact rhythm of his father's old work signal. Caleb's heart raced. When he turned to head back inside, the cabin door slowly swung open on its own. Inside, the journal now lay open to a blank page. A single fresh sentence had been scrawled in dark ink. "You shouldn't have come back." The whispers in the pines the next morning, frost coated everything like glass. Caleb explored the camp, retracing his father's old roots. The machinery was rusted through, eaten alive by moss. But the strangest part was the forest itself. It seemed different somehow. The pines weren't straight. They leaned inward, forming a subtle ring around the camp. He followed the faint sound of dripping water to the old mill, where something shimmered behind the cracked window. He entered cautiously. The air smelled of iron and rot. Hanging from the rafters were dozens of small wooden carvings, eyes all facing downward. The dripping sound came from above. Caleb aimed his flashlight upward and nearly dropped it. A man's boot hung from a beam. Attached was a leg, mummified, frozen stiff. It wore his father's work pants. Then, outside the mill, something whistled again, only this time it was right behind him. The silent zone Caleb sprinted out of the mill, breath clouding in the frigid air. The forest had gone dead silent. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of snow under his boots. He stumbled toward the truck, but when he reached it, the windshield was covered again, this time with dozens of eyes drawn in soot. He climbed inside and turned the key. Nothing, not even a click. The forest pressed in, thick and dark. From somewhere beyond the tree line came the faint sound of boots walking, steady, deliberate. He rolled down the window slightly, listening. The steps stopped. Then a man's voice whispered, barely audible, "Stop looking." When he opened the door to check, there were footprints in the snow, bare, human, circling the truck in a perfect ring. The watcher appears. Night fell fast, smothering the forest in black. Caleb returned to the foreman's cabin, locking the door and dousing the fire. Every sound felt amplified. The groan of the floorboards, the tick of cooling metal, his own heartbeat. Then came a faint creak outside the window. He lifted the curtain. Standing just beyond the glass was a tall figure, its face pale, featureless except for a single dark eye carved into its forehead. Caleb stumbled back, grabbing his axe. "What do you want?" he shouted. The thing tilted its head. The whistle came again, but this time it came from inside the cabin. The lantern flickered, sputtered out. In the darkness, Caleb could hear scratching along the walls, slow and deliberate, as if the thing was tracing something into the wood. Then silence, until his father's voice spoke softly beside his ear. It never leaves the forest. The final carving. When search crews arrived weeks later, they found Caleb's truck still by the old camp, keys in the ignition, door wide open. His lantern lay shattered on the ground beside a single boot print leading toward the mill. Inside the foreman's cabin, investigators discovered carvings covering the walls, ceiling, and floor. Thousands of small eyes, each marked with a single name beneath it. Most were names of missing loggers from decades past. The last one carved read, Caleb Turner. Locals say the timberline site is cursed. Those who enter begin to hear the whistle after nightfall. Hunters claim they've seen a tall figure among the pines, watching but never moving. If you stare too long into the woods there, you'll start to notice shapes between the trees, eyes opening in the bark, following you. And if you ever hear a whistle that sounds too human, don't answer it. The Hollow Children of Devil's Ridge. In the backwoods of eastern Tennessee, where the Appalachian hills twist and breathe like living things, lies Devil's Ridge, a steep, pine-choked mountain above a dried-up lake. Locals whisper that it's haunted by the voices of children who vanished there in the 70s. But to documentary filmmaker Lauren McKay, it was the perfect setting for her next project on forgotten American folklore. She arrived one gray afternoon, drone-packed, camera charged. The forest was stunning but wrong. No birds, no bugs, just the wind moaning through the hollows. Her phone's compass spun wildly, refusing to find north. She climbed toward an overlook and saw something carved into a boulder. Dozens of tiny handprints pressed into the rock, as if made from ash. Then, through her camera lens, Lauren caught movement below. 5 small shapes darting between the trees, fast and silent. The whistle game, she hiked back to her base camp near dusk, the woods closing in with an unnatural stillness. Her campfire crackled low, throwing orange light against the trees. Somewhere far off, a faint whistle echoed, a melody almost playful. It came again, closer this time, like someone trying to mimic a bird call. Lauren turned on her recorder. Locals say the lost children used to call each other this way, she whispered into her mic. Then faintly she heard it again, but now it repeated the exact rhythm she'd just spoken. Her own words came back, distorted. Locals say, the lost children. She froze. The whistle turned to soft giggling. Her flashlight beam caught movement, a small figure crouched behind a log. Hey, she called, thinking it was a local kid. The figure rose slowly, head tilting sideways. Its skin looked gray, stretched too thin. When it opened its mouth, no sound came out. Then the whistling started again, right behind her. The camp distorted. Lauren bolted back to her tent, breath shaking. But something was off. The fire was dead, the air freezing, and her tent zipper was wide open. Inside, her sleeping bag was turned inside out, filled with pine needles. She grabbed her camera to leave, but when she turned it on, the footage showed her sleeping, filmed from outside the tent. No, she muttered, hands trembling. The timestamp read 20 minutes ago. She replayed it again, this time noticing faint outlines. 5 small figures standing just beyond the firelight, motionless, their faces blurred by darkness. The last frame showed her tent door unzipping. She ran toward the trailhead, but the woods didn't look the same. The trees leaned inward like they were closing a doorway. The path was gone. The whispering started again, childish and broken. Stay and play. The laughter turned to crying, low, echoing, endless, the hollow hill. The crying led her to an opening in the hillside, a hollow where the lake used to be. The ground was soft, sinking underfoot like damp earth. The smell of rot hung heavy. Inside she found remnants of something old, tiny shoes, a rusted tricycle, a child's lunchbox from the 1970s. She started filming again, her flashlight flickering. The beam caught a mural on the cave wall. Charcoal drawings of stick figures holding hands around a fire. Above them, tall shapes watched, adults, faceless, looming. Then she noticed fresh drawings, 5 stick children, 1 taller figure with a camera. Her. A soft whisper came from deeper in the hollow. We drew you. She turned, flashlight trembling. 5 small children stood there, eyes pitch black, mouths hollowed out into wide, soundless O's. They began to step forward, each movement jerky and wrong. The smallest one reached out, whispering in her own voice, "We just want you to stay." The children's game Lauren dropped the camera and ran blindly through the hollow. The air grew thick, every sound muffled. The giggles returned, closer now, circling her. She stumbled onto an old wooden sign half buried in dirt. Devil's Ridge Orphan Camp, Esther, 1951. The truth hit her. There had been no missing children. They'd been left here, forgotten. She heard the whistle again, impossibly loud. Her ears rang as shadows darted between trees, too fast to follow. The world around her began to twist. The trees leaning, the earth breathing. She screamed for help, her voice swallowed by the wind. Then came a sound like snapping twigs, multiplied 100 times. She turned to see small pale hands reaching from the soil, grabbing her ankles. "Play with us," the voices whispered in unison, "and you'll never be lonely again." The ground opened beneath her. The final tape 2 months later. A park ranger found a camera half buried near the old lake bed. The footage was grainy but intact. It showed Lauren wandering the woods, whispering to someone unseen. In the last few seconds, she turned to the lens, eyes wide and empty, and whispered, "They're still playing." Then static. The area around Devil's Ridge was later closed after multiple hikers reported hearing children laughing at night. Locals claim the wind there carries voices, soft, pleading, and childlike. Sometimes, if you whistle a tune, the forest whistles it back, but slightly out of rhythm. Every spring, new handprints appear on the rocks above the ridge, tiny, soot-colored, as if pressed by invisible hands. And if you visit the hollow at dusk, you might hear a voice in the dark asking, "Do you want to play a game?" If you answer, you never leave.